Hello everyone. How's it going? This is Azrin here with Blaise. How are you, Blaise?
Well, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty
We don't have
happy.
Kolton today because Kolton is at Sundance Festival.
Yeah, pretty
Why aren't you at
exciting time.
Sundance Festival for that matter?
Well, it, to translate the Summer Festival of Sundance, the Blackfoot name is called Akukaksin, which in translation it means summer camp. And due to earlier with post contact generations, you have like Jesuits and other academic scholars of social science come over and try to interpret, and they kind of get it kind of wrong, and they deem like different cultures ways of celebration to Sundance, but in actuality, it just means summer camp, which is pretty huge. Here in Kainai, I remember like when I was in 2016, I believe there was over 270 teepees. Now with this year, it's still big, but there's over 170 teepees and
Wow.
possibly so.
hmm And do
So
you usually go to it?
I usually go to it. Um, I joined my family in some of the celebrations. But to summarize it up, there's like four different societies there. And mainly it's like the main society's camp is in the center, which is called the Ixkinaiks, which means Horn Society. But I don't have the right to speak about it. But the whole summer camp is basically the Ixkinaiks camps, and all these other societies are kind of like um, guardians of the Ixkinaiks. And we have like one woman society, which is called the Moto Geeks, and they're kind of like the mothers of the summer camp. So it's a pretty cool system in a way.
hmm Oh, very cool. Very cool. That's
Yeah,
what Kolton is now.
and Kolton, he's doing, I believe he's participating in these ceremonies and visiting with family and just having a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, he really likes it. He went last year and he had lots of interesting stories about it. He really had a good time.
Definitely.
Well, what's that?
And maybe one day we could take you with us.
Yeah,
You could you get to experience Akukaks and
I would be happy to. There we go. You're all fuzzy because my glasses were super dirty. I was like, oh my
I
God.
know I in Sundance, and I still okay, I got a lot of dust on mine.
Yeah. Nice.
Super hot out there.
What's that?
At Akugaksen, I went to go over there for my master's seminar class, and it's scorching hot. I think it was like over there at that site, it was like almost 37 degrees, and it was brutal.
Really?
Prairie, like the prairie grasslands, it's just the sun just reflects off the grass, and it just gets super hot,
Mm,
and see the heat wavelengths. It's like almost
wow. And it's like that dry heat, right?
like super dry heat. I'm like drinking like large bottles of water. I think like I consume like 10, and it's like I'm still. It's like
Wow. That's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Here it's because I'm in Taipei right now, and it's like we have a humid heat every day. So it'll be like 30 something degrees. So for the Americans, it's like 80s, like kind of mid 80s. But then with the humidex, because it's so humid, it feels like 45, which is like 110-ish Fahrenheit, something like that. It was like really, really hot, really, really, really hot with the humidex. But this week is kind of lucky because we have a lot of rain. And then today actually we have a stay-at-home order. Well, no, I don't know if it's an order, but they're like don't leave because it's a typhoon and it's going to make
Oh,
landfall. I think it's called a sea and landfall warning. I think it's called. So it's still not. It hasn't hit. Like if I just look out the window, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna look out right now actually just to see. Um, it looks pretty chill right now. Like it's not. It's kind of cloudy and sort of raining, but it's the typhoon's on its trajectory, and we should hit. It should hit Taiwan, or at least the northern part of Taiwan.
do
Um,
be smooth.
a little bit later today. So just yeah, basically stay home and don't go out, and everything's kind of closed today.
Yeah,
So it's much
to be
cooler, which is good.
safe.
Yeah, it's like 20, what is it today? Let's see. I want to Google it now. Taipei weather. It is, well, actually, it's not like that much cooler, I guess. It's a whopping 28 Celsius and 82 Fahrenheit, and I'm sure there's still humidex, so it probably feels like 35, but that feels cooler. I'm like, oh, it's actually okay. That's not bad. I can handle that. Well, yeah, normally it's like I have a screenshot from the weather like about a week ago, and it was like 47. And I was like, 40, like oh God. Like you're outside for 10 minutes and you're like you've sweat through all your clothes.
Yeah, like I really feel you too. I was in my seminar class, like I was sitting kind of like outside of like the tarp, well, not tarp, kind of like this weird big tent structure, and I'm sitting out like almost literally at the edge of outside, and I'm like my belly is sweating through my shirt, and I'm just like I want to sit in the shade. So
Yeah. Have
it's
you,
pretty brutal.
out of curiosity, have you ever done a sweat?
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have. I I went through like different societies that have like different sweat protocols, and some of them range from like pretty good, almost like sitting in like in a really nice sauna, to the most extreme, and it just gets like, oh my god, there's no way in hell I'm gonna make it out. And
Oh wow.
there's some people in certain sweats, if you will. Some of them scream, some of them kind of black out because of how extreme the sweats are in Blackfoot culture. But I don't want to say which sweat lodge it is, but overall, like it's just gotta know which one is going to be, like they're all good. It's just how much pain, like heat can you take in a way. So it's up to the individual. But
Hmm.
you feel a lot better when you come out of the sweat lodge, and you feel more, in a weird way, grounded
Hmm.
in like with your just your everyday life, and you just feel like a new man.
Hmm. How many have you done?
When I started sweating, I think I was about 14 years old. I went to my very first sweat. Um, it was kind of like an offering sweat, and my great uncle was leading it. And what we did was we would usually like get like the willows and clay and all these other features that kind of construct like this infrastructure, if you will, and then you start to build it up and put, dig up like a pit.
Hmm.
Depending on the shape of the pit, some Blackfoot we usually have like circle, square, or triangle,
Yep.
and each of these shapes are keenly related to like societies, if you will. And I don't know too much about it, but these are the things I kind of observe.
Right.
And like the funny story about this is that during my first sweat, it was nice. I really enjoyed it, considering that I don't like at the time I was not comfortable with like dark and hot spaces at the
Yeah.
time. Now like starting to kind of like condition yourself throughout each different sweat, it started to become more comfortable.
Hmm.
And when I went to this sweat with my uncles at the time, and my late uncle, Blackfoot name was E Minnie, and he was a leader of like one of the Nunavska bundles, and thunder pipes, if you will. And so just sitting inside with one and just listening to the prayers and the songs, and then my uncle kind of took pity on me, where it's like some of these sweat lodges from different societies, they get really hot, and boy, I was just like kind of like curled in a ball. It was like, oh yeah, just pray, just pray. The next time my uncle was like just said something like I forgot what he said, but he said but in translation, he says like just kind of take pity on him. And so there's like an elder that would sit, say like in the circle, and he would this elder would sit like on the other end, who's orchestrating the sweat. He would pour the water with the ladle on into this pit with like with scorching hot rocks, and so he took pity on me, and so kind of opened the doors and well doors I mean like the
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
and it just got really easy. Um, give me 1 second. So
Sure, sure, sure. No worries. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, please. Continue.
and so like where did I leave off?
You opened up the quote unquote door.
Yeah, and like so like depending on like in the process of the ceremony, like sometimes they would open the doors, and which would kind of represent like we're halfway through it. And once they're fully open to both sides of the doors, it's complete.
Yep.
So, but throughout like my experience with different sweats, like different tribes too, I went to different tribes with that would host like a sweat ceremony, and they operate differently. So mainly like for my culture, I can speak on like the Blackfoot. It's mainly men that go in the sweat lodge compared to other sweats from different nations. Women and men can go inside. So it's kind of interesting. Like there's some different cultural protocols with sweats, and sometimes like you have like this kind of near, I guess you could say like knowledge of conflict, if you will, where some tribal members from different nations go into a sweat lodge, and it's like, hey, just you need to sit outside, and it's kind of like it creates like this little
Rift.
unsure,
Mm-hmm.
unsureness protocols, and so like if the viewers of like different nations were to like see this, like best to know your protocols when you attend to different ceremonies, so saves your time and get to know the culture, and more importantly have a good time with the culture and experience their ceremonies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Azra, if I may ask you too, like you've been into a sweat lodge too, right?
I have. Yeah.
So yeah, like what was like Scott Gunny's sweat lodge like? Kind
Yeah,
of
so it's so basically there we went to well, there's the actual sweat lodge, and it's essentially a very low tent of sorts, but it's not a tent. It's made up of, I suppose, like blankets and things of that nature, and kind of
harps, right?
tarps. Yeah, that's the right word, not blankets, tarps. Yeah, like tarps, and it's quite low. So when you're sitting inside, obviously very dark, and like the top of the tarp is hitting my head, so I was probably more hunched like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we're quite relatively squished, and not super squished, but there were about, let me think, one, two, three, like I don't know, I want to say like seven of us approximately inside there. So like not super squished, not like, I mean, some people might get claustrophobic, but it wasn't like this. But like my knees might bump the next person or something like that. There were a number
Mm-hmm.
of us that were doing sweats for the first time in there. Um, and then everything was done in fours for ours. Is that common?
Yeah, very common.
Yeah, very common. Yeah. So everything was done in fours, whether it was, four different rounds in the sweat,
Mm-hmm.
like everything is done in fours for the most part. And then yeah, it gets hot, and it's, you feel you're sweating like crazy, obviously.
Yeah.
And like the first thing I noticed myself, and maybe you can relate, the first thing I noticed when the sweat actually started, meaning the steam starts to come in, is just those first breaths are just like when you breathe in, it's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmingly hot in your throat.
Yeah.
Like, or your whatever you nose or mouth, whatever you breathe in through, like whichever you pick, you can pick which one you want, but you feel it, you really feel that burning sensation. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
thinking, like, oh my God, this, like, I don't know how to breathe in this. Like, how do I? And so you have to get used to that sensation of that steam going into like down your throat. That was the very first like shock I had was, whoa. That's interesting.
Why is the air spicy?
Yeah, the air is spicy. Like the air is, and I don't. I've been in a sauna a cup like a long time ago. So, but I don't remember having that in a sauna. I don't remember that feeling in the sauna when I went last time. But is that you were saying sometimes like a nice sauna? When you go to saunas, do you get that same feeling or no?
Kinda like the only thing is like compared to a sauna, like you have much more room and you could
Yeah.
just like flop around and just kind of just play like a sloth, if you will.
Yeah.
Com- Depending on the numbers of participants of a ceremony of the sweat lodge ceremony, it's just like I remember being in one sweat lodge where everyone's like sardine into like this small lodge, and it's like, oh god, and I'm like close to like the fire, like this rock pit, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to get cooked alive, and sure enough, I got burned. It was so like I tried to like bargain my way. I was like, hey, next round, you want to switch? And of course, like um the fellow participants were like, no, 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 you're good there. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so like I was like, okay, tell you what, after this sweat lodge, and like they at the end, like we usually get fed with like a lot of awesome food and goodies. I was like, tell you what, if they have cake, I'll give you my cake, and if they have fry bread, I'll give you my fry bread. And so like, and that somehow sealed the deal, and so he switched, and boy, he regretted it.
Oh.
It was just like, oh yeah, yeah, and you say like I'm fine in that seat. I'm like, no, that's the hot seat. And boy,
Yeah.
was it. But I'm not sure if you, and I'm just gonna be gunny sweat, but like, do you recall like they have like sage inside?
Yes. I
So
think it
like,
was. I'm like I actually I should be clear. I'm when you say it's sage, I'm thinking it's sage, but I don't know if it's sage. It's like some plant. I'm assuming it's sage, but actually it might not be. But some
well, like,
plant.
yeah, like sage is kind of like well, sage, and like there's two different sages. So there's the male sage, which is kind of like a huge leaf. Well, not a huge leaf per se, but like a long leaf cluster of leaves. And then on the other side, there's like the female sage, which is kind of like little clumps of flowers, sage, which are kind of like grown in lower parts of Alberta. So,
I want to say
and
I think it's the like quote unquote female sage as you're saying, but I next time when we have Kolton, we can like confirm with him. He can speak more to it than I could.
definitely, and like when you see sage, like what usually helps with kind of like breathing the hot air, I usually pick up the sage and put it on my face, kind of
Hmm.
like a little mask. I like filter the hot air. So
Okay.
it manages to that. So if you're in a sweat lodge again, and you see sage, like the male sage, like a little, like the diameter of like the leaf up like this,
Hmm.
yay. Use it kind of like breathe in the sweat lodge,
Right.
so it helps filter. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. It was yeah, it was obviously hot, but it was I I have and again, Colton can confirm this because yeah, he knew the individual who was facilitating or orchestrating it. I'm pretty sure he took it a little bit easy on us
Mhm.
because we had a number of first timers in there.
Yeah.
So I think he did. I'm pretty sure he did. My initial reaction was, wow, this is hard. But then as we kept going, I thought to myself, like, yeah, that was hard, but I think that could have been worse. Like, I'm pretty sure that could have been worse. Because like, you eventually get into, you probably can relate to this too. You get in, like, after the second round and you have two more to go, you're suffering because it's
Yeah.
hot and you're sweating and it's uncomfortable and you're all crouched over and you're semi, I wasn't squished exactly like sardines, but it's not spacious.
Mhm.
And so you're suffering in a sense. You're not comfortable, but you get into this a different mindset. It's kind of hard to explain. You're
Yeah.
you I don't know. It's like, if you don't sleep for 3 days or something crazy, your brain goes in a different state and you just it works differently. Your brain chemistry changes. It felt like
Kind
my
of like a
brain
little
chemistry
coffee.
changed. So actually went to like a meditative state for the last two rounds, yeah, the kind of a meditative state for the last two rounds, and it was I don't have words to describe it, but
Hmm.
not really fine, but it was because you're not fine, you're uncomfortable, so you're not fine, but you're in a different state of mind and you can sit there even though you're not fine. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, I get what you're saying, and like in those kind of moments, like some individuals kind of get a little brain foggy, if you will, due to the heat, and like that part right there, it's almost like you're kind of like in a quote unquote. I'm not using the if I'm not sure if I'm using the right word here, but kind of like in a translucent state, if you will. If there's like kind of just your brain just kind of just goes on autopilot in a way. You just
Mine
kind of
was a
feel.
little different. I made a conscious decision to go into a meditative state. I decided, you know what, like I think this is that's probably what needs to happen. And I have a few
Mm-hmm.
like meditative practices I do on a regular enough basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to go into one of those. And
Yeah.
because I thought to myself, there's a couple different types of meditation that I do. One of them is probably the most common. And that one I thought, oh, this it would probably be easier to get into that state of meditation with the current state of mind that I'm in. It's easier to go
Mm-hmm.
there. So let me actually go there and see what happens. I still remember.
Yeah,
I still remember. Yeah, I still remember what I experienced that meditative state. So yeah.
definitely. And like most of these sweat lodges too, like they it's almost encouraged to be in that state of mind to meditate.
Hmm.
And like all the ceremony is pretty much like
Yeah.
listening, hearing the prayer, but also kind of saying your own prayer in your own
Yep.
mind. Um, yeah, and it's kind of a wonderful feeling in a way. It's almost like in a weird way you're grounded when you're done with the sweat.
Yeah. You said that earlier. Like, what do you mean by that?
Like what how I from my personal experience, when you're done with the sweat lodge, you when you get out, you just kind of feel refreshed in a way, and you feel more kind of in a state of like equilibrium in a way.
Hmm.
You feel good, but at the same time, like it was hot and it was uncomfortable. But then when you're done, it just feels like you want to get back inside and just continue on with the prayers. And there's a lot of stuff with these sweat lodge, like they not only that they heal you in a way, but they also kind of give you like a teaching lesson of like how to control yourself in a state of kind of like uncomfortability.
Right.
And when you get out of that, it just feels like that kind of there's like that firm belief of like groundedness, and it's kind of like a really cool lesson in a way.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like
You're reminded of what? You're reminded of what? Almost like what matters.
mhm,
There's no way you're in a sweat lodge and let's say you're worried about, let's say, I don't know, your boss has got a deadline on you and you're stressed about it. That's
mhm,
driven right out of your mind when you're squashed in like sardines with eight other men and it's hot and your throat's burning and you're sweating and you're praying, people are praying and like that's the last thing on your mind.
definitely. And like the reason why these sweat lodges were created in the first place, like to tell you a story about how they how it was what the Blackfoot what they received. Um, so it's just kind of like a little cool like origin story of the sweat lodge, if you're cool to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So like when the humans or like the early proto Blackfoot, if you will, kind of like give you that kind of like that complex time chronological sequence, if you will, when there was a guy named Scarface in Blackfoot. It's called Błapski, and he had like this really kind of like a bad scar across his face, and he fell in love with this one woman who was the daughter of like this chief, and he wanted to like court with her, and so the daughter said like no, kind of go away, and so like he kind of felt kind of hurt about it, and so he went to like this one medicine man, and he asked him like where do I how do I get this girl, and this medicine man told him like to go see the sun at his lodge, which is not Dusi in Blackfoot culture. The sun is kind of like our one of our gods
Okay.
in Blackfoot culture. And so he journeyed his way to the not Dusi's camp. And what he found through his travels, he came across one of his sons named Apesoas, which is Morning Star, who was being attacked by these like I guess you could say these giant cranes, if you will. And so Boapski, Scarface, he took it upon himself to save Apesoas, Morningstar, and killed those cranes. And so after he killed those cranes, and Apesoas thanked him for saving him, and so Boapski was kind of constantly trying to ask him like, where do I go? Where is your father's camp? And
Mm-hmm.
so Apesoas took him to Dusi's camp, and Dusi was sitting inside his camp, and Apesoas, or Boxopesoas, no, um, Boapski, yeah, that's just Boapski. He asked him like, I need, I came to you to ask for to seek help to get
Okay.
rid of this scar.
Right.
And so what Dusi did was he made him build a lodge, and this lodge he made him cover like all these blankets or these robes to make it dark as like pitch black, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Would conduct that ceremony, and it got so hot, Boapski's scar just washed off his face. And so after the ceremony was done, Boapski touched his face and the scar was gone. And
Mm.
Dorsey told him, I gave you this gift. Now you bring it home to your people. And so after he brought the ceremony was done, Boapski went down, and turns out like he brought this gift, which was the sweat lodge, to his people, and all the pain, all the hurt, all these Blackfoot word of the day, asap will mop see like this state of danger or state of chaos is washed off of them. So in this case, we call in my culture we call this cleansing.
Yeah.
So these sweats are designed to cleanse when, say, like society members are going to be opening or dancing with their um, holy relics. This is kind of like a way to wash off that stink, that human stink with the spirits. So this ceremony was one of the first ceremonies that was gifted to the humans from like these legendary anthropomorphic figures of our culture. And so Blotski, he was one of our like kind of like our first human to give that ceremony to the humans from our gods. So it's a pretty cool interlink relationship with like ceremonies that were designed or originated from these gods, if you will. So now you know that story now. So
Hmm.
cool. It's a
Wow.
cool. It's kind of like a. It's like a cool chronicles of like Blackfoot culture.
Mm-hmm. We all need practices that are cleansing, that
Mhm.
bring you back to baseline,
Definitely.
that wash away like all the all the stress and pain, wash everything away, right? So you can go back to baseline.
Hmm. And these sweats, like they're near spider webs of relationship where each individual that are in these participating in these sweats, like you pray for others in that
Yeah.
sweat, so
Yes.
that they too go home to their families in a good manner. And there's like a lot of good um, outcomes. And when you go to these sweats, you go in with a good mind, a good intent, and a good heart, if you will, because like no one wants to go into a ceremony that's mad or has ill
No.
intentions or
And
just
that's a
bad.
very good point because it's not yeah, that's a very good point. It's not just the physical um what's the word? The physical discomfort that's so cleansing about it. It's that you're under intense physical discomfort and yet with other people. So there's a communal aspect to it, and everyone's focused on the good, essentially. Right? Everyone's
Definitely.
focused, everyone's aiming up, for lack of better term. Everyone's aiming up and they're focused on the good while enduring just pretty severe discomfort. And there's something quite cleansing and poetic about that in a sense, because here you are being it's almost like a metaphor for life. You're going through a very big, a very challenging situation, and yet you're consciously choosing to have faith, or not even, maybe that's not the right word, but you're consciously choosing to still aim up and still focus on the positive and still think of the person beside you and pray for others, right?
Definitely.
Something very, very deeply powerful about that.
And these are things that with ceremony, like they're kind of like our like for Okokaksen, for instance, it's kind of like our New Year's for the Blackfoot. It's like
Mm, yeah,
five, like one of the harshest seasons, which is winter. In the early pre-contact era, the winter seasons are very dangerous because like not too many people do prepare like accordingly, and sometimes rations are depleted and lack of the firewood is gone, and like that's a very dangerous time that during back then. And so like when they celebrate Kukaks, and it's it's almost like celebrating like kind of like it's like Christmas of July, if you will, and
right, right.
it's a beautiful sight to see. And yeah, it's when you ever go there, it feels like home. Uh, it's kind of a weird way to say it, but it really feels like home because like everyone's smiling, everyone is in good thoughts, good ceremonies are happening, but more importantly, you've survived one of the harshest winters or harsh um, obstacles that you went through.
Isn't it
It's just
interesting that they would do sweat, like if they did sweats when there were, like, for example, the sweat lodges, they did them when they had less, I don't want to say access to food, but less access to physical necessities that we have now. So, for example, when we did the sweat, I walked out and we had, 25 bottles of water just sitting there, right? That was purchased in advance and it's all just, there you go. Oh, great. Open it up. But that wasn't the case, that wasn't the case in the past. And it's actually much more dangerous in the past, really.
yeah,
To do a sweat and to think that but I think it's very important, I think, to do though, like that. That's a type of ceremony that's very important, I would think, because it resets, like you said, it's cleansing. It resets, yeah, it resets, it's like emotional reset, something like that. But yeah.
so and like for like kind of like it's like a weird philosophical notion of like cleansing. I keep bringing that up um, multiple times. Like when these societies or these ceremonial enclaves, if you will, when members wanted to conduct like these ceremonies, first process is they have to sweat, get cleansed with their relics, and then dance out. And then when they're done celebrating, they sweat and close it. It's kind of like it's like opening a key
opening the door and closing it. It's like it's kind of like an interesting process of step of ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I guess we can wrap this episode up here. That was a good one. A very interesting conversation.
Definitely. And so the more cultural awareness you know, the better you understand that culture.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
share my world to you and to the audience.
totally.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching / listening. We'll see you next time.